I know your name's CutFlow Dre on
Yeah.
Instagram, but if you
Yeah.
could introduce yourself, where you're from, and where you're at in your barber career.
My name's Andres, last name Alvarado. Some people look at me and they don't know what race I am. My mom's Puerto Rican and my biological dad is half black, half Mexican. But my dad, who raised me since I was born, is Mexican. And that's how I got the last name Alvarado. And that's really how I ended up in the Valley in RGV, which is South Texas, because that's where my grandparents are originally from. I was born in Ohio, Lorain, Ohio, and then I moved to Jersey and I grew up in Jersey until I was 19. And then when I was 19, that's when I moved to Texas with my grandparents when they retired and moved down here. So that's how I ended up down here in the Valley.
That's actually my first question that I have for you. What was the first time you grabbed a pair of clippers?
I started off when I was 16 years old. The person that taught me how to start doing music and made me fall in love with barbering is the same person. And the reason for that is because me and my younger brother, Chino, which is the co-owner of the barbershop with me, we would go to this guy named Walter. He was about 24 years old. We would go to Walter's mom's house, very small little area. It was like you walk in, it was 3 stories. It had the attic, but it was a small house. And we walked straight into this hallway, and in between the kitchen and the living room is where he would cut hair. And everybody would wait in the living room. But his mom had a rule that nobody can hang out in the house after they get a haircut, only if they're waiting for a haircut. 'Cause everybody went to Walter in North Plainfield, New Jersey. Now, Walter, he bought this little MPC back in the day, and he used to make beats. So he used to have his beats connected to the speakers in the living room, and he used to make beats while he was cutting hair. And like he would play beats, right? So me and my brother Chino, like we had already a history of trying to write our own raps because we love Mobb Deep. Like we grew up on Mobb Deep. So we used to literally rap Mobb Deep's lyrics if it was ours. But then people started being like, yo, y'all always rapping. Like, how come y'all don't make your own? So we already had a little history. We bought a karaoke machine. We would buy tapes from downtown, instrumental tapes, and we would rap to them, make songs and stuff like that. So Walter making beats. We're waiting for a haircut. We write into Walter's beats. We're like, hey, Walt, you think you could back that up a little bit? And he was like, well, so y'all write to? Like, yeah, we start writing. Bro, he used to like, especially Chino. Back then, Chino was way nicer than me. And he was nice. Everybody knew him for just have metaphors and all that. He was lyrical. So he would be spitting. It got to the point where he was letting us stay the whole day. It was just so much fun for us because everybody loved him. You know what I'm saying? He was getting money. You know what I'm saying? He was showing us love. He would buy us stuff to eat and stuff like that. All because we was writing raps to his beats and giving him suggestions. Hey, could you bring some bells into this and that? So he's who introduced me to really loving music, making music, and then also the barbering thing too, because he would tell us what clippers to buy, this and that, so we could edge each other up. And that's what we ended up doing. That's how it started. Me and my brother edging each other up and then just trying to do little tapes.
So the first person you ever cut was your brother?
Yeah, I actually have 3 brothers. So it was him and then my 2 younger brothers, like testing out. But really, I didn't do more than just edge ups, bro.
Listen, I know people, the first time they did an edge up was in the school bathroom. So that's what I'm trying to get to. Like, they take me to that moment when, so you at Walter's house, you're learning about music, you're writing your own rap, you're encouraging him, listening to his. I know, yo, we the same age, so I know exactly. That's where I got the name Efexx from, because I was doing music videos and everybody, you had Hype Williams and then you had Lil X. So directors were getting their own name. My name was Eric and a few people called me E. So I was like, okay, I put the effects in the video, Efexx. So that was where I had my own little name and all that. I know exactly what you mean when you say you in the house, MPC, the Motif 8, right? Big keyboard sounds, all that. So take me back to that moment where, all right, I'm making music, I'm doing this. That I already got a passion for that, but I think I can line my brother up. Tell me, like, where'd you get the clippers from? Do you know what clipper it was? Did you get it from CVS? Take me to that moment when you first lined up your brother.
The clippers, I definitely didn't get from a store. I know that for a fact. It had to be from Walter. To be honest with you, bro, I think we got everything from him. I can't even remember where we got this stuff from. I just know we ended up having it and we ended up using it. But I'll tell you this, when I moved to the Valley when I was 19, because I was going to Walter's house from the time I was 16 till I left, till I was 19. And when I left over there, I came to the Valley with that in my head because I had got expelled from school over there, right? So I never graduated. So when I came over here, I was like, yo, I know I need my diploma so I could get into barber school, and I'm gonna go to barber school out here and find out what's up with barber school. But the thing is, when I came out here, bro, guess what? Yo, haircuts out here was like $3 to $5, bro.
Mm.
$3, and they were doing a 2 on the side with a fleck on the front. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't feel like there was any money to be made.
What year is this?
Yeah, this is 2001.
2001. Okay.
When I came out here. So then I started working telemarketing jobs. Then I went to the oil field. And when I went to the oil field, I worked there for 2.5 years. And that's when I started being like, yo, every time I go back to the Valley, because I was all over Texas, right? Every time I go back to the Valley, I start seeing more and more people with the fades and stuff. So that's when I was like, man, I don't want to keep doing this. I got to come up with a plan. The whole time since I came out here, I was working, I was cutting people's hair just every now and then, thinking that I was nice. So then when I was in the oil field for 2.5 years, I became a foreman after 1.5 years. I was busting my butt. I was working hard, doing good. But every time I came home, by that time I already had my wife, I already had 2 kids. So every time I came home, they were getting bigger and I was missing out too much. So that's when I was like, all right, it's time to go to barber school. People are starting to get fades and stuff like that. They're paying like $15 for it around that time, 12, 15. So I was like, this is what I want.
What year is this?
This is 2010 when I entered barber school. I was already married. I had 3 kids, bro. I got 5 now. The 4th one was actually born while I was in barber school. So by the time I got out of barber school, I had 4 kids.
Talk to me about that barber school experience. Like when you entered in barber school, you came in at a different time in life. A lot of guys, if they're doing it the best way possible, graduate at 18, enter barber school, a few months later, by 19, 20, they have their barber license, they begin their career. They start making money, meet a girl, get married. Then they start to have kids after having it. You did the opposite. Tell me about when you entered into barber school. What was that like? What were you going through at that time? Because you still got to work, you still got to provide for the fam, right? So what was that like?
We moved into my mom's house. It was me, my wife, and my 4 kids. At first it was 3, and then it was 4. All of us in one room in my mom's crib, which was about a 30-minute drive to barber school and back.
Were you working?
Every day. I was working a job, but the job was basically paying for my gas because I was working at Kohl's. The reason I was working at Kohl's was because my stepdad's friend was a manager at Kohl's. So he got me in there real quick. So basically I was waking up in the morning, my wife would take the kids to school, and then I would drive to the barber school. I'd get there by 8, and then we get out at 2:30.
Why was it so important to actually go to barber school and get the license? What was it that got you to the point where you said, man, I can't just keep lingering and doing this job, that job.
Yeah.
I got to go full steam ahead. Even with kids, working part-time, your wife's pregnant, that's a lot to sacrifice, man, to make that move.
When I came to the Valley, that was the plan, to cut hair. Barbering and barber school was always in my mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Walter back in Jersey, he didn't have his barber's license, but he would always talk about how bad he wants to go to barber school, how he wants to become legit. So he always instilled that in my mind to do it the legit way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I didn't know much about it. I just knew that Walter wanted to do it the legit way, and that's the way I think that I should do it. Then I heard that they be running up in barbershops to catch people without a license, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. I wanted to do everything legit, you know what I'm saying? And plus in my mind, bro, you know how you have reservations about stuff? Like you're thinking like, damn, I hope this works out. I never had that, bro. In my mind, I always thought I'm gonna hit the ground running as soon as I get my barber license, bro. My first business cards were a sheet of paper, and I broke it into 12 things with a line down the middle and lines down the side, and I drew 2 heads on each one with a fade and one with a design, on each one with my phone number. And then I went to I forgot where I made copies of it, and I just cut them out. Those were my first business cards, bro. I didn't have no thoughts about, oh man, this looks ghetto or nothing. All I thought was, people got to know that I cut hair. That's all I grew up around, was hustlers like that, you know what I'm saying? I was running the streets at a young age, and that's the reason I came to the Valley, because I was running the streets, you know what I'm saying? And that's all I was around. People just hustlers. They just got to it. It wasn't never no laziness.
Good, bad, or indifferent. Draw the cards up, take copies, cut them up, hand them out. However you got to do it, get to it, because we got to get it done. No, that's great. So now you graduate barber school. What's your first step? What's the next step after that?
So I actually worked at 3 different barbershops in 3 weeks. So
why was that?
The first barbershop was a shop that a couple people that I knew worked at, and I know they had a lot of walk-ins. So I was like, that's probably a good place to start. But when I started working there, I didn't like the 2 owners. It was 2 female owners that they were real old school. They would be real shady. Like they had this walk-in list for the barbers. Once I finish a walk-in, I go to the list and write my name at the bottom again. And then once I cut somebody up, my name gets scratched. Like that, we know who's the next barber to get the next walk-in. But the problem was they would be scratching your name out. So you'd be waiting and they never call your name, and you go up there and you see your name scratched off and you're like, why somebody scratched my name off, bro? And it happened too many times in that 1 week. So I was like, bro, I don't like this, bro. I'm out of here. So the second place I worked at was my homie Magic. And he was in barber school with me, but he graduated right around the time that I got there. But we became real cool in that little bit of time. And he was actually showing me how to cut, because that's what I got close with in the barber school, was just people that knew how to cut. Like I see other people like hanging out and freaking cut in school, like if it was high school and stuff, not wanting to cut hair.
For it, right.
So anybody who I saw that knew how to cut, those were my best friends. And he was one of them. He had a barbershop already and he told me to come try it out. So I went and tried it out, but his shop was in the cut, so he ain't had no walk-ins, bro. So I was like, bro, I'm sorry, man, but I'm gonna have to go somewhere else. And the third shop I went was this place called Fade and Blade. It was on 10th Street, which is like the busiest street here in McAllen that I'm at. They didn't get that many walk-ins, but the walk-ins that they did get were getting the haircuts that I wanted to do around that time. And the environment was cool. So I was there for 1.5 years. And I built my clientele. By that time, I had some legit flyers. I was handing out flyers. I would tell my homie, let's walk around the neighborhood that the shop was at. When it's slow, we go over there, we knock on the doors, we hand out to people. I think it was just in me to just understand, like, the more people we tell, the more opportunities we have to cut more.
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game, right?
It's a numbers game.
If I give it to 10 people and I get 1, and I give it to 20 and I get 2, then if I give it to 100,
if you give it to none,
get 10.
If you give it to none, dang,
you get
none. That's the thing about that's the thing about
exactly.
none. People don't understand how crucial none is, and there's so many people that doing none. That's the crazy part to me nowadays.
I knew there was something about you because I've seen people like that was doing content for a long time, and then I see you put your content out, and it seems like you got a good flow to it. And it's interesting because I see younger guys, they'll come out hot and they'll move. And I thought that's what you were doing. Oh, I come out, one video does good, it goes a bit viral. All right, I'm hot now, I'm on Easy Street for the rest of my life. I thought you was much younger. But as I continue to see you keep going, I'm like, oh, this been in him the whole time. He just never exposed this. That's what it felt like. Because if you would have been around for 4 or 5 months and then disappear, which that happens, right? Yeah. I talk about like Panda. I got broads in Atlanta, right? We remember that guy, like, where's he at today? So he has that flash in the pan where it's boom, you blow up, everybody knows you're on the Breakfast Club, and then all of a sudden, a good 5 years later, where you at? And then you got people like Jay-Z is 40 years later, LL Cool J, they 40, 50 years in. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got Drake been over 10 years. Lil Wayne, he done had his career, launch other careers, launch labels, out the label, come back. You know what I mean? And have that longevity. Yes. So I knew there was something different. What made you take that step to the next level?
I never looked at it or even knew that you could use it for business purposes, bro. I always thought it was just like to talk to people that you knew in the past, meet new people and stuff like that. But it always used to end up getting in trouble for it. So I was just like not even into it like that. Let me put it like this. In 2019 was when I first found out that you could become famous off of Instagram. And the reason I found that out was because I started hiring barbers. In 2016 is when we opened up. So by 2019, I had a pretty established place and I was able to pick up a lot of young barbers. Through my younger barbers is where I found out about different quote unquote famous barbers, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's when I found out about Chris Baggio. The ones I had already known about before that was A-Rod, Papito Bless Hands, and the other dude, Marcus, they used to work with. But I didn't know that they got famous because of Instagram. I just knew about them. I had Instagram, but I wasn't big on it. I would see things from time to time, but it was more other barbers showing me, you know?
Right.
So 2019, that's when I heard about Chris Baggio. And that's because of them. They were like always talking about him, yo, he's this, that the invention, you know what I'm saying? That's when he came out with the pad, which I still have to this day, where you put your clippers on and charge up. I kid you not, bro. I went to that expo. It was at the Island, SPI here in South Texas. And it was a real nice expo. I got to meet him and I'm acting like, I'm telling you, I had a crash course about him like a couple weeks before that, before going to see him. I was fronting, bro, and I was in front of him. I was pretending like if I knew him and, you know what I'm saying, I was a big follower of him for so long and I knew all this stuff. Right. the reason I knew so much was because of my guys knew so much about him and they would talk so much about him. But the main thing that blew me away, bro, was how people are lining up to buy his product, bro. That's what blew me away, because I've always had ideas of inventions, bro. That's what I've been wanting to do. And I actually have an invention that I'm about to drop like in 2 weeks. So rewinding back to that, that's when I started realizing like, damn, yo, you can actually build a brand through social media. Right. I started paying attention. I started following more barbers. I started watching the content. And that's when I ran into It's Marvy Barb. And once I bought his course, I just took off with it, bro, because I started learning how to post, right? It's about knowing how to record yourself and post it to where it catches people's attention and people stay watching it and people want to share it. It's relatable. All this stuff, bro. He taught me that. So once I started understanding that, then the rest, it was just me being as creative as possible, man. Just, you know what I'm saying?
I've been seeing the content and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't feel normal. It feels like you're someone who has an idea of how to market. And marketing is not easy. I just had an interview with Angel Raw, for instance. Angel Raw, he's an introvert. And his photos, it's amazing with the camera. But then you never hear him speak. And he was like, yo, this is the thing that I got to do. But he focused on it and really grew in his ability to speak. It doesn't come natural. When I started seeing your content, I'm like, oh, this seems really natural. So now you open up the shop. The guys are telling you about Bazio. You go to the Texas Barber Expo. You get it. Now you're like, oh, okay, sorry, fellas, I was wrong. I thought this wasn't the way, but this is the way. I'm going to start doing this. You sign up for the course. You get the course. Yeah. Now you've been doing it since 2020. That's 3 years. What keeps you going at this point?
What keeps me going?
Yeah, because a lot of times when something's new, and that's how I am a lot with software, I'll learn like Final Cut Pro or CapCut or something. You're like, oh, that's so cool. In those moments, it's great. A week later, it's fun. 2 months later, it becomes mundane. Okay, we got to do it again. Okay, now it's a year later. You're like, man, we still doing it. We still doing it. What keeps you going? What keeps the passion alive? Why do you keep coming up with new concepts? What drives you is what I'm saying. It's because after all this time, you know, you haven't given up.
To be honest, bro, what drives me is trying to get the follower count up, if I'm keeping it 100% honest, right? So I have things that I try to pop off back in 2019 in terms of, it was like a month. Like, I don't want to talk about too much because I'm about to try to relaunch it, right? So basically it was a service for barbers, an online service for barbers, right? So I try to launch it off in 2019, but when COVID hit, a lot of products I was unable to get my hands on anymore because it was a lot of sanitation supplies, right? So I had to basically just pull the plug on it, right? But then when I started realizing, it was a blessing because I didn't realize how much money I was gonna have to put into marketing so people could trust my product. So now, once I start doing this building and building, I'm like, yo, this is a niche-based following that I'm building here, right? So these people, they're following me, but at the same time, my face is becoming somebody that they trust, not somebody to just make them laugh. What they don't realize that they're realizing is that, yes, they're laughing to the content and it's funny to them, but at the same time, the reason I'm able to do all that is because I understand the business. I understand the industry. You can't make these kind of videos if you don't understand the industry, you know what I'm saying? So they trust me in that sense. And then they trust me because I'm also talking facts.
And that's the thing, in your content, some people think that it's about sales. And I tell people sales and marketing are two different things. The goal of the marketing is to get people to know and trust you. Now, there will be a time where I got a product and it's got a price tag associated with it, whether it's an online course like Marvy Marv or a hat or a t-shirt or an expo, whatever. But you put so much time into getting people to know, like, and trusting you through your content. I want to take a step back where you talked about you're developing something, and you don't have to say what it is, but you are developing something. And take me to that moment, because here's what happens, right? A lot of times people see you on stage or they see your video got 300,000 views and they're like, man, I want to do that. And what they want is the views. What they want is the nice haircut on stage, talking and motivating people. But what they don't know is everything that it took to get there. And it sounds like for you, in your mind, and it's not really failed because you didn't launch it, but you had an idea and you're ready to go and you had to pull the plug. Take me back to that moment when you realized, man, I had to pull the plug. What was that like for you?
Oh, It was sad, bro, because I've never been the type of person that I feel like anything I do is gonna fail. I always feel like it's gonna pop off, you know what I'm saying? And even my wife, like so many times in our relationship, I'm like, yo, we're gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna make this happen, you know what I'm saying? And so many times I don't make it happen. And that's why, like, when we're driving in San Antonio and I got the room paid for, I got the gas paid for, they paying for our dinner the night before the expo, and plus they pay me like $500 to $700. We're driving over there and she literally looks at me and she'll tell me, like, you actually making it happen for us. You're making it happen for us. You know what I'm saying? You said you was gonna do it and you do it. And that's when it really hit me, because she been with me from nothing. I always have ideas. But the thing is, I never have the actual tangibles to make sure it works. But see, with this barbering thing, my foundation is the shop. My foundation is my clients. And it's beautiful that I'm able to do things in this same industry that I could feel like, bro, I'm finally at the point where I'm saying I'm gonna do something and it's actually happening. So now with that business, I had opportunities to take money from investors. I had all these different things that I'm so glad that I didn't do. And I just tried to do it on my own. And always something popped up. And it was always my homie who helped me with my logo. He's actually my client for a long time client. He has a business that he started. It's called Glitch Labs. And what they do is they do branding for huge corporations now. But he's still messing with me because he loves my creativity and I'm his barber, right? So many times, bro, sitting in his office thinking we're gonna take a next step, something pops up. Oh, we gotta, I don't know, this is gonna do this. It's gonna cost like $3,000 or this and that. And I'm like, I can't do that right now, but let me try to make it happen. And it just always a roadblock, bro. But now with this, I don't want to call it a follow. I don't like calling it a following because it's like, just I guess
platform. It's a platform.
This platform, this brand.
Creative, you know? Platform.
I don't like calling myself an influencer. I don't like those kind of words, bro. But I do like.
Why not? What's wrong with being an influencer?
People could call me an influencer all they want, but you'll never hear me call myself that. Is basically what I'm saying.
Okay,
you know
I see what you're saying.
I don't like saying my followers because it's more. I don't know. I just feel a way about it. It's just more like building a brand, and now I feel super comfortable. Basically, I feel like I could do what I want to do now. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy how all these barber influencers, bro, the one thing they all have in common, in terms of the ones that I rock with, is they all very likable people, bro. And I think that goes hand in hand.
If you had to teach a class, what would you teach it on?
I've done a couple classes. I'm actually out one pretty big class coming up October 8th in Lubbock. It's gonna be me and Tank. You'll see me promoting it a little bit more. But what I'm gonna be teaching is building clientele. And I'm not even gonna be talking about building clientele through social media. I'm gonna be talking to those that always got excuses or feel that they don't know how to do this and they don't know how to do that. I don't wanna do a whole seminar on social media. I wanna do a seminar on, me and you started off this conversation with. We talk about numbers. So I'm teaching people how to use just their phone, no booking app, no business cards, how to do it like that. And that's simple as possible. You got no excuses, bro. I'm gonna teach you just pictures of your haircuts and your phone. That's all you need. I'm gonna teach y'all how to get a Rolodex of clients lined up in your phone. And I'm gonna teach you how to do it with no apps, straight up, just your phone. As simple as possible. That's what I like to teach, because everybody could teach business.
So true. I do apps and I work with people who are using Booksy or Style Seats, things like that. And when they use them, they think the app is the solution. No, the marketing is the solution. The app is a tool. The app is not the solution that's going to do it. You can use your contacts inside your phone. You can grab a piece of paper and a pen and draw lines on it. And you definitely should do that in your class and say, yo, this is square one, because the idea is make 12 business cards with one piece of paper. Copy that one piece of paper 1 million times. Now you have 12 million pieces of paper. It's the same thing when you create one video and then you post it online and many people see it. I've been doing ads so long, I'm like, no, that's the easy part. That's easy. Doing online booking is nothing. Booksy, Squires, all the same thing. It's the customer needs to be able to choose a service, look at a calendar, pick a time, and put their name down. And you need to be able to see on your end the calendar that Joe is there at 2 o'clock for a fade. All of them can do that, but you gotta market it. If you're not marketing it, it's not gonna do anything. And if you're not paying attention to it, and actually utilizing the tool. But that's what it is, a tool. People look at that and they're like, "What? Oh, what's the gem? Cap cut? Yes. Now I have the tool, and all my life's problems are solved."
That's all I needed. That's all I needed.
That's all I needed.
It's just like the barbershop. I tell the barbers all the time, when people walk into the shop, you gotta treat them like you love the fact that they walked in the shop. And the reason for that is them getting to the shop and coming inside the shop, that's the hard part. Once they're in here, that's the easy part. Don't mess up the easy part. So just like you said, like the app, that's the easy part because they're already there and they just gotta choose and they already got your schedule, boom. But bringing them to that point, that's, I don't wanna call it the hard part, but that's also the work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, work on that end as well, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just saw your video with the Michael Jackson. So people make it seem it's not easy. You got to set up the camera. You got to do it. You got to film the other guy. You got to make it. You got to get sound effects. You got to put it in. You got to edit it. Trust me, I know what it takes. It's not easy. It is a process.
It's funny you mentioned that because that was filmed in 2 separate days. When I filmed myself doing all that, it was actually at night. It was like 11 o'clock at night. 2 of my boys were here with me. One that was sitting on the chair, that's my oldest son. And then the one that was recording. So it was them 2. So I did all my side.
That's your tripod.
That's your tripod. So I already knew everything that I was going to do. So I did it all. And then the next day, that's when I recorded my homie that was over here. Now, if you listen to that video, you'll see that none of the sounds really match up with what's going on. It's just around so everything that he was doing, I was just making sounds, stomping on the ground. Like none of the audio, because I recorded with my phone, so the audio was trash. So I wanted it to be nice and clear. So I did my own audio and stuff like that. So yeah, man.
You created your own sound effects?
I created my own sound effects. I recorded myself going like this. I just did it once, like that, did it once. And then I used that same sound for the time that I whipped mine, for the time that I whipped mine in front of him, for the time that the other barber whipped his around the thing. That was all one. That was all one sound. The same.
And you just duplicated it.
Yeah, duplicated it. I might have put the volume down on some of them, put the volume high, mess around.
Yeah, man. This is the type of stuff I need people to hear because we want them to know it's not all views and followers and money, and it's not all glorious, man. It's a lot of work. It's 2 days shooting. It's creating, recreating, and trying to come up with creative ways. And then after all that work, you put it out, and you may just get 800 views, and maybe it don't get 36,000 views. Sometimes it do, and we celebrate and we high five. But at the end of the day, it's about putting that work in on a consistent basis.
And like you said, there has to be a reason why you're doing it, bro. If you're just doing it for the views, when you don't get those views, you're going to fizzle out because you're doing it for the views. Like me, I'm doing it because I'm trying to build a brand because I already know what I'm going to hit them over the head with. You know what I mean?
You got a plan, and it's strategic. It ain't microwave. It ain't happening overnight. That's what people say is an overnight success take 10 years. It takes a while, man. It's not going to happen right away. But you definitely have a strategy and you're executing well on your strategy. So the last thing I do want to go over is what's next. And I know you don't want to talk too much about it, but I know where you started. I know you started in Walter's kitchen, getting your haircut, making music. Ended up going to barber school years later and finally locking that down while your wife was pregnant, by the way. Like I know that was rough. Taking the kids to school, she pregnant, you got to go to work. You got to get to school. You got to do your 450s, your 600 hours. You got to do tests. You got to cut them out. That must have been tough.
Try 1,500 hours.
1,500 hours. Wow. But did you have a test in between at certain markers?
Yeah, you take the written test once you hit 1,000 hours.
Okay, yeah. And then you got to do that. And then you got to finish out your hours, apply for your license. It's hard to do. And if you had to encourage someone, what would you recommend them do? You think they should get their license like right away as soon as you can? Or maybe it took you to when you had your kids, it gave you more of a driving factor. What would you recommend someone do if they wanted to become a barber?
I don't want to recommend a certain thing because different people that might hear this might be in different parts of their life. You know what I'm saying?
But do you wish you did it earlier? Or are you like, nah, it happened when it happened. It was supposed to happen that way.
No, I think about that a lot. And the reason I don't have any regrets of the timing of it was because in my 20s, bro, I was messing up. I was 25, but in my mind, I was still like 17. So I feel like if I would have got my license around that time, I probably would have screwed it up, bro. I probably would have burnt my name. Just like you might know a barber that you know, or some barber like that I know that everybody knows that he always messing up, bro. He'll make an appointment with you and he'll party and won't show up and stuff like that. Especially that young with money in my hands, you know what I'm saying? Because I grew up, I didn't have bread like that. It wasn't until I was in the oil field that I started having some money. So if I would have had money at that age, I would have probably screwed some stuff up.
I appreciate you saying it because that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm not saying what it is, but and that's how I like to do my interviews. I give you several ideas to choose from. And if you don't like any of them, you give me your own. And I do it that way because it helps to put a picture in your mind that you can either push against or agree with. And that's okay. I don't mind the disagreement. Disagreement is fantastic. That's what actually creates a better context to who you are. So it's really important.
As I get older, bro, what I understand more than anything is how precious time is, bro. Can't be wasting time. That's the biggest problem with people nowadays, man, is that they just don't understand. For example, think about what you could accomplish in 30 minutes. So many things you could accomplish in 30 minutes as a human today with the technology that we have, right? Just imagine how much people waste watching Netflix or playing Madden. You talk about you might be on a game for 2 hours. That's that 30 minutes we just talked about times 4. All that productivity that you could just waste away without even thinking twice about it.
And like you said, maybe they're not ready for it. You may not be ready for that moment. A lot of times you don't realize what you went through until you go through and you look back. I remember I went to Las Vegas for the IBS show a few months back. And I took my daughters out there with my wife and they came with me to the show. I did a class there. And then we went to the Grand Canyon. And when you're driving from Vegas to the Grand Canyon, it's about 2.5 hours. And when you're driving, you'll see the mountains really far away. And they're like this big from your perspective. As you keep going, that mountain gets bigger and bigger until you actually get to the mountain and you're driving through the mountain. Now the mountain is so big and overwhelming, you're consumed by it. But then at some point you get through the mountain and then you go out the mountain and the mountain is now filling up your rearview mirror.
Yeah.
It's completely filled. You can't even see the top of it. And as you get far enough away, now it fits in your rearview mirror. So having that experience helped me understand, like, a lot of times you don't realize what it was until you reflect and look back.
Yeah.
So if you had to reflect on your time, what's the greatest lesson that you learned going through your 20s, maybe spoiling some time, getting your license, having your kids? What's one of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
Damn, that's one thing I never thought about, bro. I never thought about looking back and reflecting on it all because it's a lot of experiences, but.
And you got to, though. You got to, man.
Yeah.
Because when you celebrate, you got to take all that in. When your baby was born, like, I haven't had that story told yet. I'm having my 4th kid and I'm deciding to go to barber school. That's dedication. That's sacrifice. Give me something that someone could take away from this after hearing your story and be like, man, this is what I realized about time, about work ethic, something. What do you think that is?
Man, I think more than anything, something that I can take away from all my experience up to this point is that I always felt like I could make it happen, bro. I never doubted the fact that I could put this whole thing on my back and make it happen. I always felt like I know what I got to do and I'm going to do it. Never waiting for somebody else to make something happen for me. Always thinking about what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's one thing I don't regret. If I could look back and be proud of something about me when I was young to this point, it's always having that same mindset.
I think what it is too for you is you have a creative mind, you have a creative spirit. And I was talking with Angel Raw earlier. He actually posted it from our interview earlier where he said, I did a design. I said, you know, what gave you the audacity to think just because you could draw with a pen that you could easily draw with a pair of clippers? He said, you know what? That's a good question. If I had to think about it, I was just naive. He said, today, if I had to do a design on stage or something, I probably overthink it because I know too much. But back then, I didn't know if I was going to mess it up, I was just going to shave it bald anyway. And I was like, man, that's a great insight to say, hey, sometimes when you're younger, you just dive into the deep end and you drown a little bit and drink a little water, just keep paddling, like you'll make it. You just can't stop swimming in the middle. You got to keep swimming till you get to the other side. There's no giving up.
I like that he said, I know too much. Because I remember thinking to myself, I hope that I don't know too much. I think Jack Harlow said in one of his lines, he said, y'all can't come from the heart because y'all just too smart. And I hope that I don't fill my head with too much because I just try stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Because that's the thing. Like, I'm 40 years old. I'm becoming an empty nester. My kids are hitting those ages, graduating high school. And
Yeah.
something that I tell them is, you've been trusting us as your parents that when you walk in the bathroom, toothpaste is going to be there. You've been trusting us as your parents that when you hit that light switch, the light just turn on every single time. But as you become 18, 19, 20, you got to now learn to trust yourself.
Yeah.
You got to be like, it's me. I got this. And you've had that whole time. I'm not waiting for somebody else. And that's hard for some people. Some people don't like, man, if I get this job and I got to get up at 7 in the morning, I'm probably not going to show up because I don't like to get up early. And it's not, you got to know, if I get this job, no, I know I'm going to be good. I'm going to make it. I'm going to be there at 7. I'll be there 5 minutes early. Don't worry about it, because
no doubt about it.
Not from a place of I believe in myself. Like I've never done it and I think I might do it in the future. And from a place of I've done it several times. It's behind me, not in front of me. You know what I mean? Yeah. I trust myself to do it because I have done it several times, and I'm gonna move forward with that. And I think that's what I try to teach the younger kids. And that's what I want. I want people to be able to listen to this and hear people's stories and be like, man, I was at that point and I know that I can make it to the end. Because a lot of times we see the end from the beginning. You know what I mean by that? The end. I see the end from the beginning. If I want to be like CutFlow, Dre, right? I'll see the end from the beginning. I see the 40,000 views. I see the skit. I'm seeing that before I even get started. But I just don't know the middle. I don't know what it took to get there. And so that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast, is talk about the middle.
Okay.
I mean? So
I got you.
Nah, man.
So
I really appreciate
with this podcast. Are you going for to talk about content, or is that main thing? Or
so we talking about whatever the individual, like for instance, I've done Ivan Zoo. He's an educator. Kenny Duncan, he works with Andis. So it really is. I really want to know people's story. My first question is, what was your first haircut?
Gotcha.
Because I want to start there, and I want to help other people, other barbers, hear other people's stories. And Kenny Duncan, he didn't even want to be a barber. He went to college, and then 9/11 happened, and it shut down the school, and he had nothing else to do. But he had 20 customers. So he like, let me get 30, let me get 40. And then was like, maybe I'll do this full time. But he didn't want to be a barber necessarily. So it's about those stories. That's what I want to learn. I want to know. And especially for people who are having some level of success. Listen, before I met you, I thought you was a young kid that started doing funny videos because they took Marvy Marv Sports. Now talking to you, I know you're a father of 5 and 40 years old, and you didn't get your license until you was like 30. And I want people to learn and understand your story. That's my goal.